Hi everyone, good to see all of you. Happy Friday. And the time now in Singapore is close to 10 p.m. And I'd like to start by wishing everyone great health, great happiness, and great safety for you and your family. And our apologies for also starting late too, because we were engaged with a previous training assignment, but it's still great to be able to connect with each and every single one of you. Today is a special day for Singapore because Singapore actually went into a circuit breaker period since the 7th of April to about 1st, 2nd of June. And this month, what happened was that after which the government decided to reopen the economy in phases instead of rushing to open the economy entirely, because that could potentially mark the spike of another wave of COVID-19 infection cases, which is why there was the decision made to reduce the pace of reopening the economy and to reopen the economy in phases. So that's the phase 1 and phase 2 and phase 3. So today marked the start of the first day of phase 2, which means that quite a number of businesses can in fact operate, retail can operate already, people can dine in groups of not more than 5, and it's certainly quite different an atmosphere as I was walking outside before coming over to my center and then to set things up for my training and for my sessions. I realized that the mood was a little different. People were dining in, but still, yet they were observing some new things. It's in a way like a new normal. People were observing certain new things, and it's in a way like what infectious specialist Dr. Leong said very well. It's once bitten, and it's very hardly, I wouldn't say hardly, I think it would be very severely bitten. We decided to change our habits, and now there's the mask wearing, there's the other precautions, social distancing, to make sure that individuals they play their part to help stem the spread of COVID-19. Which I find it very, very encouraging. How are you guys doing? Just let us know. Feel free to comment as you are tuning in, watching in live on YouTube, on Facebook, or on Instagram. Just let me know. You can comment. You can share with me how you are doing so far. Are you enjoying yourself? Time with your family. Now more time is being spent at home, whether it's working or studying from home. Let me know. If you have any questions, send them over. They could be questions related to public speaking, which is my niche. It could be questions got to do personal questions. Could be questions got to do with business. I'd be more than happy to just share with you my 2 cents worth, and at the same time, find out how you guys are doing. My team has actually collated quite a number of questions. Now, you notice something different about today's Q&A is that those of you who have tuned in the past, you will notice that there are 2 boxes. One box which is white in color, the other one which is this box, pink in color. The questions in the pink box, they are public speaking related, they are business related, they are mindfulness practice, stress relief related. But for the white color box, they are personal questions. Today, our team decided to do something different. They decided to put all the questions in one box, and then it's just for me to pick the questions at random, but also inviting our friends tuning in, watching this live right now, to feel free to ask any question. And I have Derek with me. Derek will write down the question, and then he'll pass it to me. I'll be more than happy to answer your questions. While there are a lot of questions coming in, I won't be able to answer all of them in this short 20 to 30 minutes engagement session, but I'll do my best to answer as many questions as possible. Sounds good? Okay, so let's get started with the first question. Let me pick a random question. The question is, Darren, how should I dress to appear confident? Well, there are many different things that we can do to help us exude confidence. Dress is one of which. I would say there are 3 things to take note of. The first one would be very mindful of the occasion. So you need to know what's the occasion and what would then be suitable. Would it be a more formal type of dress? Would it be a less formal type of dress? That would actually help you to appear confident because you're wearing something that's befitting of the occasion. Can you imagine wearing something that is not fitting for the occasion, and then you have to do a lot more work to help explain yourself or to maybe deal with the stares at you? So I think that is quite important to consider. Knowing the occasion, knowing the event that you're attending. The second thing to take note of would be what you can do when it comes to dressing is be yourself. I realize that there are some very powerful entrepreneurs around the world where they choose not to wear someone else's brand. Like for instance, they choose not to wear maybe an Armani t-shirt, they choose not to wear a Louis Vuitton blouse, they choose not to wear a Abercrombie and Fitch pair of shoes, but they decided to change and customize their own apparel. Like for instance, they wear their own cap with their name on it instead of wearing a cap like perhaps from Calvin Klein. So perhaps wearing something that's customized could help very much, and it's certainly helpful to be a conversation starter. When you go for a networking session, first thing people ask you is, wow, this is a very nice set of outfit. Where do you get it from? And you tell them about customizing your own outfit and not wearing someone else's brand. That will be a very good conversation starter. People are going to see you in a different light, a positive light most of the time. The third thing to take note of is in how to dress to make you feel more confident. I would say dress in a way that makes it not distracting and helps to advance the message that you are trying to make. If, for example, the message that I'm trying to share is that of applying a lot of kindness to yourself as well as to others, plus be nice to the people around you, be nice to yourself, and at the same time, avoid judging yourself too harshly. I'll probably not come in a business attire, assuming that it's also suitable for the occasion. I'll come in a slightly different set of attire that it's suitable, perhaps in a more smart casual sense, and that's going to help me very much in connecting with the audience better. Yep. So also be very mindful of the kind of message. Is it going to be distracting or is it going to help advance the message? So those are the 3 key pointers that I thought would be helpful. Yeah. So keep the questions coming in. I'll be more than happy to answer them. The next question is, we have, this is from Angel Lee. The question is, Darren, how do you put across humorous speeches in different settings? For example, in a more serious setting like speaking with CEOs, and in a more informal setting like speaking with your friends and with your colleagues. So thank you very much, Angel, for your question. I would say when it comes to humorous speeches for different occasions, you need to be quite mindful of a few things. One, it's humor works very well when there's a change in expectation. It's like when there's a setup and there's momentum that's being built. When your audience members' expectations are being set in a certain way, you then derail the train of thought, and that's the one that's going to create the laughter. We call it a punchline or a punch word. So that's one thing to take note of. Now, how do you make it appropriate for the people that you're speaking with? First and foremost, understand that they are people that you're speaking with anyway, whether they are CEOs or whether they are your friends or whether they are perhaps colleagues of yours. So which is why I would say, regardless, know that they are humans. And for humans, there are certain common denominators when it comes to humor. Like, for example, the punchline or the punch word, which is derailing the expectations. Like, don't step on their laughter so that they are able to finish laughing. You're able to allow the impact of the laughter to come in full. The other one would be making references that are still sensitive to the emotions as well as to the culture of the group that you're speaking with. So those are common denominators. But I suppose the main part about your question is, how can you apply it in different settings? So what are some of the differences there? Well, I would say there are a few things to take note of. The first one would be, when it comes to speaking with perhaps say CEOs, we need to be, or maybe senior management staff, we need to be a little bit more mindful as to perhaps time, which is an important factor, and the other one would be sensitivities and references. Now let's talk about time. When it comes to time, it really refers to the time allowed for your setup. If say like you're speaking with a group of CEOs or you're speaking with senior management individuals, time is usually of the essence, and you might not have the luxury of time to be able to have a longer setup or longer build up or perhaps to build rapport. So usually some individuals will do the rapport building before the session, before the main business presentation, and then to insert the humorous point. Some individuals, what they will do is that they will do a very quick setup and then a punch. Now, in order to do a quick setup and a punch, I wouldn't want to go into the technicalities there, but to do a quick setup and a punch, what you want to do is you would want to use either exaggeration, a technique, because that's one of a humorous technique, and the other one would be a daily observation, something that often people get to see. The other thing other than time would be, I would say, sensitivities, because there are certain things that when it's in the business setting, certain things that you cannot say due to confidentiality issues. There are certain things in which perhaps it might hit a raw spot, so you need to be extra sensitive, and these are not exactly the group that you might easily find what are some of the do's and don'ts, the very clear OB markers, that means the out of bound markers. So what you want to do is check beforehand, either be part of a meeting or a training session or a discussion session with them, and to find out what's the style, like what's the rough context. Feel free to speak with the people there. So it's a lot of the homework that people think is just going out there and giving humor, but it's a lot of the behind the scenes work. The final one would be perhaps some form of sensitivities. that is a little bit more personal. So knowing the person helps, but also at the same time knowing the company's culture, knowing who the competitors are, knowing who are the customers that they serve, knowing what are some of the down and dark moments that the company went through, so it will better inform you as to whether or not certain things are appropriate to say. Yep. Now, as for friends and colleagues, the time built up will be very much different. Plus, at the same time, what I would say is the common understanding of certain issues might be stronger. Where if you're speaking with friends and colleagues, the shared experiences with your friends and your colleagues, you might see more overlaps as compared to perhaps with CEOs or with senior management staff, that in terms of your encounters or interaction with them might not be that frequent. So I would suppose for that part, it will be easier for you to find that overlap, because daily observation is something which for humor is very useful. Let me give you an example to make this more concrete. This usually takes me hours just to illustrate and help my clients apply in a manner that they can do so effectively. But we don't have that much time today. Let's just quickly illustrate. Daily observation would be something like if something that you see happening and you find that it's funny, you note it down. For instance, in Singapore, we have this observation, which is that individuals, when they take the train, sometimes when they meet someone that they know, the person would often remark, it's just like a casual greeting, but it's a little weird. So why I say little weird is because it's one where most people would think that it's a bit of a no-brainer, isn't it obvious kind of question. For instance, if someone is waiting for a train and you look at the person and hey, long time no see, waiting for a train, is it? I mean, obviously the person is waiting for a train, right? I mean, what else could the person be waiting for? Waiting for a plane, is it? Cannot be. So, but these are the funny moments, because these are the things and the moments that people can relate to easily. So we want to include that in your humor bank so that when you pull it out, it's easier for you to piece it together, whether it's in a comedy routine or whether it's in a form of a presentation. Sounds good? Okay, let's pick another question from the box. The question is, how do you deal with hecklers? I like this question a lot. How do you deal with hecklers? You see, hecklers, by definition, they are individuals who are disruptive to your presentation by providing not so constructive a feedback to push the discussion forward. Or it could be individuals who give points that are either not so relevant or just downright rude. What you want to do to deal with hecklers is that you would want to have a clear plan to give them the initial attention but not sustained attention. What do I mean by that? An initial attention means that you let that person be heard. So that particular person will say his or her point, after which you can address that point. You can choose to agree, you can choose to disagree, you can choose to agree to disagree. Give your reason, make it clear, make it loud, and when I say loud, it means make your voice audible. After which, offer to perhaps take the discussion after the session, because the other individuals would like to hear your views on the main matter or on the main theme. So when you say that, you don't have to worry about the other individuals not with you. The other individuals are going to be with you. So that's the initial right to be heard portion that I will often give. But after that, what I would then do is sometimes you don't necessarily have to continue to engage with those hecklers. Because ignoring these hecklers thereafter, after giving them that initial courtesy of the right of being heard, you move on to the next point. The audience members are already with you, and you would probably get the audience members' attention and help to keep the heckler, either by way of staring at the heckler, to keep the heckler quiet. For some of the events, you even have individuals who form part of the ushering security team, and they could potentially usher the heckler out of the room. So you don't really have to give them much attention there. To have to be in control of your pace, sometimes it also calls for the ability to not have to engage. When we go over and train students, there are some younger students who might not be as aware of the social etiquette in speaking. So what we do is we often remind and then we praise the good behavior. So it in a way helps to shape the behavior of that particular individual to want to change for the better. We have another question coming in. Let's see. This is from Wei Rong. Wei Rong, your question is, the pitch of my voice is pretty low. Is it better to have a higher pitch or lower pitch when public speaking or presenting? So, thank you very much for the question, Wei Rong. For pitch-wise, A research shows that a lower pitch is often associated with higher credibility. The relationship is an inverse proportionate relationship. So a lower pitch is often associated with higher credibility. So is it better to have a higher pitch or lower pitch when speaking or presenting? Generally speaking, a lower pitch to a mid-range, it's, I would say, acceptable. If it's too high a pitch, then it will be just pure distracting. Can you imagine if I were to start speaking like this and all the way for the next 20, 30 minutes? You're probably not going to take me seriously. But it's one thing which I would say doesn't change too much. If you get feedback from the audience members that your pitch is just at an unusually high range or an unusually low range, then what you could do is you can feel free to speak with a voice coach, and then we can potentially help you to do some form of voice training to help to make the register, the tonal register of your voice at a more pleasing level. Sounds good? Yeah, so thank you very much for the question. Next question is, oh, I love these questions. Quite fun sometimes. Actually, most of the time, not just sometimes. When I say why I say sometimes, because this question starts with sometimes. Sorry about it. Sometimes when I speak, I get a mental block. This is from Amit Kumar. Thank you, Amit, for your question. I get a mental block and I can't find what to express. So how do I resolve this issue? You see, what happens when there's a mental block, there are a couple of ways to potentially recover. In fact, it really depends on the occasion. It also depends on the context. But let's just talk about general principles, shall we? Let me just share with you two very quick ways to recover. When it comes to having a mental block and not knowing what to express, assuming that you are in a position where you could get the audience members to discuss, meaning either you are a keynote speaker or you are a workshop trainer, or perhaps you are a facilitator. What you could then do is then turn to the audience members and get the audience members into a quick discussion session. Tell the audience members that, all right, before we proceed any further, before I share with you some of my thoughts on this particular matter, let's just have you share with the person to your left and to your right, what's your take on this particular issue? Let's just take 2 quick minutes, and after which I'll just get some of you to also share, and then we will see if we can synthesize some of the learning points. Your 2 minutes starts now. So you get the audience members to work on these 2 minutes of a discussion. And this precious 2 minutes allow you to either go back to your notes, to go back to say some of your cue cards, to take a look and remind yourself what's the next point that you're going to say. So that's one way to recover. Another way to recover from a mental block is right from the get-go, you would want to better prepare yourself for it to help minimize the chances of having a mental block. Because when we say a mental block, how does it happen? It's really pre-speech and during speech. So during speech, I've shared with you one such way. But pre-speech means that before that, what can you do to prepare yourself better? One good way is instead of just memorizing, you see, when you have a speech in full, like from top to end, you start memorizing from top to end, verbatim, meaning word for word, it's not as effective because the moment you forget one line in the middle, your mind struggles to think of what that line is. And because without that line, you won't know what comes next. So what you want to do is one of two ways. Number one, either remember your points in point form so that you can speak extemporaneously. The thing about speaking extemporaneously is that you're just writing your points in point form, the main ideas, so that when you look at it, you will be able to still deliver. The thing is, each of the delivery is likely to differ. It's likely to differ in terms of the choice of words, even though there might be significant overlap. The other area would be, instead of just memorizing from top to end, split your speech into 4 to 5 relevant parts, and what you will do is that you will then proceed to memorize and internalize each of the individual parts. Maybe get a good friend to sit right at the end of the room and then shout the different parts, the numbers of the different parts, and maybe go to part 3. So you start remembering from part 3 to the end. Or go to part 2, you start going from part 2 to the end. Then after that, go to part 5, you start from part 5 to the end. In the next 1.5 hours, you find yourself really understanding the speech much better. You will know what are the areas that tend to trip you up. And also at the same time, you will find yourself in the event you miss, you're like in the middle of part 2 and you forget what else is in part 2, you can still go over to part 3, and trust me, a lot of the audience members don't even know how part 2 ends because you're in full control of your speech. So that's one thing to take note of. Sounds good? Okay. With that, let's go into another question. So if you have any questions coming in, I think there's one question coming in. Oh, thanks, Derek. Let's see. Okay, this question is from Meng Long. Meng Long, question is, any habit that you have managed to overcome for better you, and what did you learn from that? So thank you, Meng Long, for the question. I personally would say that one of the bad habits of mine is in seeking perfection. You see, seeking perfection is one area that's going to create a lot of stress. Now, what do I mean by, okay, we have one more microphone for our viewers. I'm just going to stick this through so that we can be able to take on, say, some of the video clips and then cut them into smaller clips for some of our other friends who are not able to tune in live. Now, the idea is when you're a perfectionist, you tend to find yourself in this whole vicious cycle of stress because nothing can be perfect. Nothing can be perfect. There's no such thing as a perfect outcome per se and a perfect process. So when you want things to be perfect, so long as there's a little bit of deviation, there's a little bit of change, there's a little bit of things that is not up to what you've expected, that is going to create immense disappointment. So the moment you want things to be perfect, you are setting yourself up for the perfect storm. You're setting yourself up to be, in a way, perfectly disappointed. So I would say one of the habits that I managed to overcome would be that of I wouldn't say overcome fully, but in the process of overcoming it, I have to call a spade, in the process of overcoming it, and it did make me a much better person. So I would say if you are a perfectionist out there, one very good way to deal with being a perfectionist is at times deliberately choose not to be perfect. Like perhaps at times some of my friends who have studied and majored in psychology, they shared with me that this is what we call the exposure therapy. The exposure therapy is that when you are a perfectionist and you are trying to keep yourself away from the judgment, away from that expectation, and what you could do potentially is take on some imperfect, they are not so harmful sort of activities or acts that could potentially jeopardize your career. For instance, I'm not saying that you be imprecise, you be imperfect when it comes to perhaps drafting a document, a legal document, but what we are saying here is that maybe your shirt might not be tucked in that nicely on both sides. You can just tuck in one, you can ignore the other. So just have the feel of the moment, to stay with that moment and to be able to still continue with that. So it's slowly exposing yourself to these small little situations, imperfect moments, and then to help build that particular resilience. Yeah. So thank you very much, Mang Long. The question, this is about how do you overcome the autopilot approach during long presentation. I love this question. Now, why do I love this question is because autopilot approach, it conjures up a lot of different ideas. How do we overcome the overpilot approach? Here, probably I can sense that the particular questioner has perhaps delivered this presentation for many times. And after delivering it for many times, this presentation is not helpful, that it's not just a 15 minutes presentation, but it could be a full day training. Here's the thing, a lot of my friends ask me, Darren, how is it that you can conduct your training sessions and you can clock in the repetition, you can do it over and over again, you can do multiple runs of your public speaking training, whether it's business mastery, whether it's your kids training. How do you exactly live with that without getting bored with repeating something? Now, here's the thing. Because I'm speaking extemporaneously, each of the time that I speak is a slightly different version with a different choice of words. Three things make it engaging for me to make me not go on autopilot, or rather I should say, to make each time, even though it's like repeating the topic, it's still refreshing for me, it's still refreshing for the audience. Number one is to always be mindful that every single audience, every single moment is a new moment. When you have the idea that every single moment is a new moment, what this means then is that you are gunning for a different, perhaps potentially different reaction. You're potentially gunning for a different degree in terms of the laughter. You're gunning perhaps in terms of slight difference in terms of the questions that they're asking in the Q&A. So you could potentially see it in that way, and that certainly helps make it more fun for you. And when it's more fun for you, it's likely to translate into more fun for the audience. Number two, toss in a Q&A moment. Because when you toss in a Q&A moment for a long presentation, what you could potentially do then is to get the audience members to be at the steering wheel for a while, to then share with you certain questions, and there would be then variety and creativity there. So have fun answering those questions and take those moments in. If you have already indeed, as what you said, clocked in that many number of repetitions, then pretty much you should be quite good in terms of the content, quite good in terms of the delivery, polished enough to be able to take on, say, impromptu Q&A. And the third one would be see if there are any ways you can improve the presentation after each run. That's really going to make you not go on autopilot. Why? Because when you take note of, okay, after this presentation, this is one thing that I can potentially change. This is one way that I can say it better. Maybe I could include a GIF in my presentation slide so that make it a little bit more animated. So these are things that I change. Like for instance, I conduct the weekly kids training. I do the same content deck 4 times every single week. Can you imagine? 4 times every single week. But what I do each time round, because it's a different crowd, is the first group, I'll always think of what's another thing that I can make it better. Second group, I'll think of then what is another thing I can make it better after incorporating the first area for improvement. The third group, after I incorporated the area for improvement or areas for improvement, then I will think what's something I can do even better. And I noticed that the final version becomes even more polished, and that's something that I can take it either to publish a new chapter of my book or perhaps to create a new video series, and it certainly makes the entire process way more fun. So really consider this particular approach. Sounds good? Okay, we have time to take in perhaps 2 more questions. Let me pick a question from here. Okay. The question is, how to develop public speaking habits in kids? Well, this is a question that I think I can speak for 30 to 40 minutes. Because it's not just one way, to develop public speaking techniques in kids. Let me share with you all. For kids, to develop public speaking techniques, 2 things to take note of. Number 1, kids. I'm not saying adults, they are the only ones who tie self-esteem with speaking skills. Kids, they do so as well. And because of that, when there is a single negative moment, it is potentially quite dangerous, because one single negative moment or encounter or an experience is likely to stick. They are quite sticky. It's likely to stick, and very quickly when you have a few of such associations, it then forms a particular habit of mind or belief. And that's the last thing that you want. Oh, I'm an introvert. Oh, I'll never be good in public speaking. Oh, public speaking is only for select privileged few. You don't want that to stick, because how do I know that? Because I've gone through that before. What you would want, on the other hand, is for public speaking to be a good habit for kids. Enroll them in a good program. I'm not saying this to sell my program, but enroll them in a good program. It need not be mine, right? In a good program whereby whoever the trainer is, whoever the coach is going to give consistent motivation. When I say consistent motivation, it means you are not just going to talk about the bad points, but you are going to help highlight the strengths. A lot of my clients sometimes ask, wow, I think it's very encouraging because I don't seem to do that a lot at home, but could you share with me what's the rationale behind giving such lovely encouragements like, all right, that's a great job, continue keeping up with that, and just be careful of this area for improvement, or just think of this area for improvement, you have to go to the next level. So why is it that we tend to be that encouraging, using that kind of tone, that kind of excitement? It's not that it's fake. No, but it's because we need to counterbalance and counterweight a lot of the negativity and the negative engine that is already running in the minds of the young kids. So imagine trying to combat that. There's not enough of the good that's being flashed out. A lot of kids, what you want to do is to give them a lot more of the encouragement. Remind them if they already know of their strengths. But if they don't already know their strengths, let them know what the strengths are. Again, you can see really the confidence in their eyes when they hear that, and they want to come back. When they want to come back, you know that it's half the battle won, because it gives you more time and more interaction to help build that skill, not overnight, but over time. So take note of that. Another area to help develop public speaking habits in kids is when you give an area for improvement, remember to always demonstrate. I see quite a number of my trainers who join me for the very first time. They find it a little hard to give, say, areas for improvement. Why? Because they feel that if they were to say that, it would either hurt their self-esteem. What I would then share with them is, if you point out an area for improvement that is more of an objective act rather than the person, that means evaluate the act, not the person. What you're going to do is you're going to let the other party know that, okay, this is the act that we need to change, and you demonstrate that change. So you show the students, the kids, that it's, number one, possible to do, and how it looks like to do it the right way. Thereafter, don't stop there. One of the things that we do is we get the kids to then say the right things. We then get the kids to do it once more, but this time around with the good habits, with the areas for improvement that we have just suggested, because the kids need to register how it feels like to execute it in an appropriate and in the right way. So these are some of the ways to help develop habits for kids. I can go on for hours and hours on just sharing experiences on how to develop habits for kids, but these are some very, very useful ways. They're coming from a training perspective. We have time for just one last question. If we don't have questions coming in, we're just going to save, we have some questions, but we're going to save them for next week. We have one last question here from the box, and the question is, how can I be flawless when it comes to speaking? Here's the thing. Don't be flawless when it comes to speaking. A lot of people think that in speaking, I need to be flawless. Why? Because my reputation is on the line, my career is on the line, my promotion is on the line, money is on the line. The thing is this, when you want to be flawless when it comes to speaking, it's just going to create a lot of stress, and you're just really not going to be enjoying. Here's the thing. When you want to be flawless in speaking, the focus is still largely on the me. The focus is still largely on the I. The focus is really not on the audience that much, most of the time. That's based on our experience. If you want to be flawless, it's all about you. But the moment you start changing and not say, can I be flawless, but how can I give the greatest value possible to my audience? You're just thinking about them. You don't care at times, sure, I may use a couple of pause fillers. I don't care if, let's say, maybe just that one time my mind goes blank. I will even walk over and take a look at what's the next thing. I'll seek the audience members' forgiveness for that. I apologize for that, and I moved on, and I just focus wholeheartedly on giving massive value and helping the audience members improve. The audience members can sense it, and when they can sense it, I can tell you they'll be on your side. In fact, they feel that it's even more human that you are able to be not flawless, but imperfect. There's always this saying that in public speaking, it's precisely because you are imperfect, that's why you are perfect. It's part of being a speaker. Same thing is part of being a human. It's precisely because you are imperfect, that's why you are perfect. So it's part of being human, okay? With that, thank you so much for the various questions, and all these are very thought-provoking questions. I know I've taken quite some time to explain, but because I want to be as detailed as possible, now keep the questions coming in, because I know that there's still a lot more questions we have not yet answered, but keep the questions coming in. I'll see you again next Friday. For this entire month, I want to do this on a weekly basis to help answer the questions that you have on public speaking, personal questions, on business as well. And there's some pretty interesting questions that my team told me that now in the box, they got to do with what I expect to see moving forward, what are some of the changes, how do we deal with COVID-19 and all. So these will be very useful for individuals watching this who are perhaps interested to go into speaking or training as a business, individuals who are interested to be a better speaker, individuals who are interested to make their kids better speakers. So these are ways that we are going to add value to you, and thank you so much for tuning in. I'll see you again next week, same time. Take care everyone, and have a wonderful, wonderful weekend ahead. Bye! See you!